Kenize Murad and Early Middle Eastern Feminism. In 1987, a new novel by Kenize Murad, Regards from the Dead Princess, Novel of Her Life, published by Robert Laffont, one of France's most prestigious publishing houses, made both history and headlines in Paris. By choosing to study this book, I intend to unveil its story following different analytical criteria. I approach it from the purview of gender studies, the power conflict between men and women in Muslim states, history, the last days of the Ottoman Empire, and the interwar years, geographical location and politics, the secret political links between Middle East, France, and India as places of exile, and finally literary genre, the amazing style of autofiction combining the subtle personal detail with the historical event. Regards from the Dead Princess, Novel of Her Life, is the story of an exceptional woman, Selma, granddaughter of Murad V, one of the last sultans of the Ottoman dynasty, caught in the political perversement of early 20th century Middle East. It is not by accident that Kenize Murad's work recreated through the power of literary fiction and historical documentation the last image of her mother Selma and her grandmother Hatice Sultan. The novel's context is of particular historic and feminist interest given that it is deeply emotional, an account of the last remains of secular culture, the story of a waning Ottoman Empire, and the personal tale of a young woman and her exiled imperial family, strewn about the continents between Lebanon, India, and Paris. Selma's stories begin in 1918 in a palace in Istanbul. With a keen sense of people's time and place, Kenize Murad imagines her main character, a witty 7-year-old Selma, in the midst of menacing political and armed conflicts. The tone of the story is both personal and historical, as Selma gains a broad perspective on the dangers that her family encounters once the Ottoman Empire begins to come undone. Behind the two texts of the book, the one relating story and the other considering women's status in contemporary Muslim society, there emerges a third story, a Bildungsroman, a coming-of-age story of sorts, woven around the person of young Selma, who finds in her mother Hatice Sultan an exemplary role model. For her part, the author, Kenize Murad, transmits onto her character some of her own journalistic affects and commentary on wars and revolutions in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Ethiopia, and Lebanon, casting a clear-eyed gaze on political changes and genocide issuing from these enclosed spaces. Murad's most recent account of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict in our sacred land strives for the same humanistic voice of people suffering behind opaque political curtains and cruel battlefield stratagems. One of my motivations in analyzing Kenize Murad's novel is also that of the narrative creation and literary aesthetics, especially Murad's particular feminist style of l'écriture féminine. Women write about the world they experience, a world too often characterized by exclusion, intolerance, lack of consideration and recognition. The first sentence in Kenize Murad's book summarizes not only the subject of her writing, but also the nature of the story she is about to unfurl. What one would call autofiction in French, a modern and complicated mix of real-life stories inspired by the author's own experience and fictional romanticized interpretation of these life-changing events. Ce pourrait être le début d'un conte, c'est une histoire authentique qui commence en 1918, à la cour du dernier sultan de l'Empire Ottoman, begins Murad's narrative. This could very well have been the beginning of the fairy tale, but it is a real-life story taking place in 1918 at the royal court of the Ottoman Empire. The genre of autofiction is not new in the 20th century novel of famous writers such as Colette or Marcel Proust, but the new meaning that Murad gives to the term and the genre is exceptional in that she wades into both her grandmother's image and her own mother's personal journey, turning both into historical facts and the lives of people who lived and bore witness to the dismemberment of Ottoman Empire and the dislocation and scattering of Sultan's family.